Good evening, everyone. We're a little late, 7:05, Monday, October 6th. Welcome to tonight's meeting. I'd like to have Mr. Ongley please take attendance.
Joe Abdella. Here. Victoria Salem. Here. Stephanie Kolnick. Jesse Liebman. Here. Angela Macurulo. Alex McNaughton. Here. Justin Ongley. Here. Jen Pody.
Here.
Jane Sargent. Pete Tagley. Mary Weber. Christine Weidig.
Thank you, Justin. We are going to start this evening with I can't see, Mr. What? Oh, isn't what? What? Oh, okay. No, I do that afterwards. Finally get it right. Jeez. We're here to recognize Mr. Kava, our longtime board member. So I'm going to say a little something about him. I know, but I have such nice things to say about him. So, good evening. Tonight we have the honor of recognizing someone whose leadership and dedication has helped shape this district in lasting ways, Mr. Greg Kava. Greg has served on the Board of Education for 16 years, with 6 of those years as chairman. That alone says a lot about his commitment, but numbers don't tell the full story. Greg's impact is everywhere you look, in programs we offer, the buildings we learn in, and the high standards we hold ourselves to. He's been a steady hand guiding our district's most important initiatives. As the chair of the building committee of the agri-science program here at Chapag, Greg has helped turn a vision into reality, creating a program that gives our students hands-on innovative education opportunities is one of our community's most vital fields. He's also chaired the negotiations and facilities committees, roles that demand patience. Yes, patience, Greg. Perspective and a deep understanding of decisions that affect the people at the heart of our schools. Through every discussion and every tough decision and every late night meeting, Greg's focus has always been on people, our teachers, our administrators, and most importantly, our students. He's never lost sight of why we do this work, to create the best possible environment for learning and growth. Greg's leadership has been marked by passion and a relentless drive to do what's best for our community. He's left a legacy of service that will continue to guide this district for years to come. Greg, on behalf of the Board of Education, our staff, our students, and our entire community, thank you. Thank you for your vision, your commitment, and your unwavering belief in the power of education. We are deeply grateful for everything you have done for Region 12 and for all of those who call it home. Congratulations, and thank you for your 16 years of exceptional service.
Thank you all very much. Now it's time for my 30-minute speech. No, seriously. I appreciate your mentioning patience because I was born with none and I have less now. June 30th of this year marked the end of my term on the Board of Education. It also marked 30 years in public service, 21 years as an elected public official, and 9 years as an appointed public official in 2 different towns. I've had the privilege of serving, though, on the Region 12 Board of Education, and I will tell you that the business of the board is the most vital and important thing that we do. And you all are to be commended for continuing to work hard and to do the things you have to do in order to make sure that our kids are properly educated. So I just wanted to say that of all the positions I've held, of all of the offices I've held, none were more rewarding than my 16 years on the Board of Education. And none were more hardworking group of people that I've ever been with. So I can't thank you enough. And it's my pleasure to enjoy my Monday nights off.
Well, we hope you enjoy your beautiful chair. for sure. And I hope that you, every time you sit on it, you enjoy, at least on a Monday night. And think of all of us as you go to bed early.
Well, some might say that my receipt of the chair is the most appropriate gift since I spent an awful lot of time sitting there.
Well, we're going to take a short recess to come and spend some time with you. So thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Oh. All right. Great. So moving on to public comments on agenda items only. Is there anyone that has any public comment? No? No one? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. First is the special hearing, the special appeal hearing agenda that was on September 11th. The that is for myself, Angela, and Justin only. Is there anything on the appeal? Yes. Eventually. There you go.
One change to make, I did notice that Michael Abraham is listed as a student and he is a parent.
Thank you. Okay.
That's it.
We will make that change. Other than that. Okay, so other than amending that change, can someone make a motion to approve? Great. So we will amend that and that is approved. Moving on to the next, the board retreat minutes for, the agenda for the board retreat for September 20th. Anybody have anything? Alex, I know that you like to comb through it. Darn it. Okay, so. No, we're gonna move on then. Yes? Okay. So moving on. I don't think we do. There's no, right? They're just adopted if there's no change. And the Board of Education meeting for September 22nd. There anything on the consent agenda? No? Looks good. Great. So then we will adopt that as well. Terrific. Thank you. Moving on to the presentation for the class of 2025. Sophia, welcome.
Tonight I will present to you the class of 2025 report. This includes an overview of post-secondary plans, majors and career areas of interest, college acceptances and enrollment, academic accomplishments, students who have taken AP, dual enrollment and honors coursework, community service, and scholarships. Broken down the post-secondary plan of the class of 2025. The total student enrollment is 80. 70 students were accepted to post-secondary programs. This total includes students accepted to two-year programs, four-year programs, and vocational training programs. 59 students were accepted to four-year programs, and 59 students attended four-year programs. 11 students attended two-year institutions or technical institutions. These include the Connecticut State Community College System and vocational training programs. 5 students entered employment, and 3 students took a gap year. 2 students entered transition programs. These students met their academic requirements to graduate, but needed to continue to develop their vocational and independent living skills. Each transition plan is individually created to the strengths, interests, and vocational preferences of each young adult in the transition program. The next section includes intended majors and career areas of interest in the class of 2025. I've listed the majors that our students entering post-secondary programs are planning to pursue.
Majors that were selected by 2 or more students are noted with an asterisk. These majors represent a variety of concentration areas and reinforce the importance of our continued efforts to expand the programming we offer in order to support student interests. Further, we continue to work on expanding dual enrollment opportunities that will allow more students to earn college credit while in high school. After our majors, you can see the list of college acceptances. So these are all of the schools that students applied and were accepted to. And below that is a list of the schools where they actually enrolled. I've also noted the level of selectivity according to acceptance rates for each school. This list represents 11 states and 2 countries. 65% of students attending college are attending an out-of-state institution. The school counseling department continues to support student interest in a variety of college programs by hosting college representatives for information sessions in our college and career center throughout the fall. This fall, we have already welcomed 26 college admissions representatives to our college and career center and have about 30 more visits scheduled to meet with our students through November. I'll next go through the academic section. We had 26 members of the class of 2025 as members of our National Honor Society. 3 students were AP Scholars. 4 students were AP Scholars with Honor. And 3 students were AP Scholars with Distinction. We also had the majority of our class of 2025 enrolled in accelerated coursework. 62% completed at least 1 AP course. 42% completed 2 or more AP courses. 72% of this class enrolled in at least 1 AP or dual enrollment course. 63% took at least 1 honors level course, and 43% took 3 or more honors courses throughout their high school career. In answering the call to citizenship, the class of 2025 contributed 6,981 hours of service. Over 81% of the class exceeded the minimum 30 hours for graduation that's required. And this year's Community Service Award recipient accrued over 400 hours of service. For scholarships, the class of 2025 earned $165,000 in scholarship money. Chicago boasts 44% of graduates attending post-secondary programs received local scholarships. This section reflects the individual scholarship as well as the students who were awarded. This information, along with all of the data reflected in this report, will also be published in the class of 2025 graduate report. This concludes my presentation of the class of 2025 report. Are there any questions?
Sorry, I have a few questions.
Sure.
Forgive me if it's on here because I'm not sure, but and when I ask this question, please know that I am asking this question not because I think it's the most important, because I don't, but just out of curiosity. Do you have it listed on how many that are going to the most selected and selected? I know you have it listed, but do you have the total of how many students are going to the various?
So the list that you see of the students where they enrolled.
Yep.
That is where they actually enrolled for the fall of 2025.
Yep.
And those universities that were noted as selective and very selective, we only had 1 student
That
at each of those institutions.
so you don't have a total,
Not a total cumulative on the report.
Okay.
No.
because that I would love to see that
Sure.
next year
Absolutely, I
added
can do that.
as included. I do have a few other questions if nobody else minds until That's okay. Just out of curiosity, is there a total number of, and I know that this is just, I know it runs the gamut just because I have kids that have already, went to schools and applied, so I know it varies. But in terms of the students, is there and I know that they have, you have, I always say Naviance, but that's right, right?
Yes.
So, and I know that they go on there, but is there a, um, a checklist, so to speak, like the good like old school checklist that you use with each student, a physical checklist that's in their file that you use as a sort of list to sort of, as an expectation that you sort of use for each student? In other words, to say, okay, so Susie, how many, what are the schools that you want to apply to? And I know you can use the Naviance to sort of see the schools that they want to go to, but sort of the guidance department's expectations of each student's expectations so that you as a guidance department meet your expectations for each student. So in other words, like, obviously each student is going to be different in terms of how many schools they applied to, but in terms of what schools they applied to. So if they want to apply to 4 schools and maybe 2 of them are less selective, some are selected, and maybe there's a reach school, like, do you encourage them to sort of have a stretch school to go to apply to, even if they're not comfortable with it, but you encourage them to?
Absolutely. So we have a number of different experiences by grade level
Mm-hmm.
that we ensure each student is exposed to. So we have a mandatory one-to-one meeting with every student every year, but often we see them more frequently than that. We have lessons that we deliver in the classroom. We also have conference worksheets for each
Yeah.
grade level so that they're developmentally appropriate. And then depending on what direction the student is going,
Yeah, of course.
we might do additional career assessments,
Right,
help them figure out what direction they want to go in,
right,
and then help them research what level of education do they need
of course.
to pursue depending on that career.
Right,
And then depending on, what they're looking for in a post-secondary program, whether
Right.
it's, primarily the academic major, or if they're also looking at, participating in an activity, that might require them to cast a wider net in their search.
when all of that when all of that's been parsed out, right?
Right.
And then you're done with that, and it's crunch time, and you're in your senior year, and that all of that's been parsed out, and you're sitting there. Is there a time when you say to them, what's your stretch school? And whatever that configuration is there a stretch school that you say to them, what's your stretch school?
We don't, I guess, deliberately make them select a stretch school.
Not make, not
we-
make, but encourage them.
We definitely guide them to make sure that their list is well-rounded. So if we have a student, we have them assess their candidacy. Okay, what is your GPA? What are your SAT scores? What are the list of schools you're looking at? And how do you, do your credentials align with what they're looking for in an admitted student? So they can assess, okay, is this a mid-range school? Is this a safety school? Is this a reach school? And then we ensure within their list that they have all of those levels represented so that we know that they have options and they have schools that really are going to be a good fit for them, which is the goal.
Right. And I guess for me, it's a catch, and I'm only speaking from my experience. And so when I'm saying this, it's not because I think that it matters for us on our report card at all. But I do think that there's some, it does matter in terms of being able to encourage our students more to apply to those stretch schools, not because I think, and I think there's lots of factors, right? Finance is a huge factor. But I also think applying to that stretch school doesn't necessarily mean they have to go, but there's something to be said for being able to still keep that, whether they get in or whether they don't, but encouraging them to do so they may get in and not be able to go, but still being able to 20 years from now, having that letter, their acceptance letter in that box might inspire them 20 years from now to pull that letter out and decide to go. I still have some of my acceptance letters that inspire me to go. And so I just think that sometimes we forget the impact that it makes down the road. And I understand all of the variables that we try to consider and to be really careful. But I think sometimes we get to be so careful that sometimes we're too careful. And I worry about that, not because, and again, it's not because I worry about what we look like, but I also worry that we're so careful that we limit their possibilities about how they see themselves. And it's not about the highest selected school. It's about their possibilities within what they can do. And that concerns me. And so I just think that that's something to consider. And I think that if we possibly create a checklist that stretches not just them, but maybe all of you to stretch them, that's something that's really important. Because I think sometimes if we pull ourselves back and we pull them back a little bit, I think sometimes I don't know. I just think it's something to think about.
Thank you. Yes.
Considering what Jen just said, and I'm wondering if there's a correlation between that kind of perspective taking on, the impact of reaching. I want to ask your perspective on the possibility of trending. I don't normally like to compare classes, especially for us, because we have such small cohorts and each cohort can be dramatically different in their interests and their capabilities. But just looking back at last year, we had a similar number of students, 77 graduated last year, 80 graduated this year. We had twice as many students attending two-year institutions or technical institutions. And last year, we had slightly higher, 91% accepted to post-secondary education and more accepted to four-year programs. Are you seeing a trend year after year of desires and differences of what their post-high school education wants or needs are looking like? I know we've discussed this kind of back end on what courses we're offering, whether we're stressing the importance of SAT scores or not. Just looking at SAT scores last year and this year, they look pretty similar. So I'm wondering why there's such a big jump in students, the percentage of students not attending four-year and wanting to attend two-year. Are you seeing trends? Can you attribute that to anything specifically?
It's hard with the percentage points because we have such small cohorts that if you have a fluctuation of 2 or 3 students in one category versus another, it appears more dramatic in the percentages.
I hear what you're saying, but this is like twice as many students. So like, I get that, like if we're talking about 2 to 5, but 11 students out of 80 is a pretty high percentage. And last year we had 77 students and half as many. So like, I always take that into consideration. So I'm glad you're bringing that up because that is important for us to know. But in this case, it's not a small percentage point.
I think it definitely fluctuates. I am seeing more and more in recent years, students starting off at 2-year with the intention of completing a 4-year degree because we have articulated pathways now in the community colleges so that students get direct entry into the 4-year public institutions. So more students are taking advantage of that.
I think that's an important point to bring up. And if we could differentiate that, is there a way to add that in saying someone is attending a 2-year institution with intent to carry on? Like, can we look at that? Because I do think that like part of the reason we do that now, or that we're seeing more of that, is financial decisions as well. So I think that is an important distinguishing characteristic to add in. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to piggyback on that, Stephanie. I know for a fact, I have, friends and family members all over the country. to save money in this economy, they are going to a local community college. They're getting their gen ed classes out of the way. And then for their junior year, they're transferring out to a bigger university so that they can get their degree from that university. I do see that. So that would be important. That would be something important to put into your report so that we can see that. So that was excellent. I do have, I have many questions, but I will not ask many questions. But do you have, starting freshman year, do you have, I'll go back to a checklist. Do you have some sort of checklist that you start with these students and you say, okay, this year we want you to start, take your PSATs and you want to strive for this, attend this after school program and whatever. And, do you have that for every year, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior?
So
And-
for example, our freshmen, we're meeting with them right now. We meet with them throughout the first quarter. We have them reflect on how the school year started, how their transition is going, how they stay organized,
Okay.
how they're managing their time, what subjects do they find they're strongest in, what subjects are they worried about, what careers might they aspire to pursue. It's early, but we like to know so we can help guide their class choices. We talk about extracurriculars. If they're not involved in something, we review options based on their interests. We talk about, their family structure, what are some challenges that they might experience in or outside of school. And we document all of that. And we build on that from year to year.
Okay. And thank you. And then fast forward to your present seniors or your juniors, it could be either or. When they are feeling the pressure and the stress of getting their applications in, making sure everything is in Naviance or whatever it is, making sure that they are writing the correct essay and applying to the right schools, hitting that stretch school. Are you aware of the stress that these seniors are experiencing? And if so, how often do you meet with these seniors to count, to check in and to really say, how are you feeling? And are you stressed? Is there anything that we can do for you? Or do you rely on those students, juniors, seniors, or whatever, to come to you?
So we do have an open calendar so that seniors can set up meetings whenever they need to. However, we also will chase every student who doesn't come to us independently. And most of the students that I've met with, I'm meeting with weekly until they get their applications in.
Okay,
So we have a lot of contact.
Okay.
I will sit with kids and help them fill out their application if they're feeling overwhelmed and they don't know where to start or they're stuck. So we really meet them where they are. We have some students who come in, they have a set list. They've known since junior year where they want to enroll, and we review their choices with them and we reflect on that. And then we have other students who have no idea where to start. And so we go through a checklist of what they need to be doing in the college process, and we support them every step of the way.
Okay. And how many counselors are there?
We have 3 high school counselors.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you encourage a minimum number of campus visits before students apply?
So we encourage campus visits. It's not always possible depending on the family. There are virtual visit options, virtual information sessions if students can't physically get on a campus. So we do, between having admissions representatives come visit our career and counseling center, as well as encouraging students to go out to schools, open houses, signing up for information sessions and tours. We try to get them as much exposure so that they can make informed decisions when they're applying.
I think some Naviance might offer this, but they indicate which colleges take into account demonstrated interest.
Yes.
Which would mean a visit to a campus and signing up, and you encourage all of that
Yes.
for them. Okay. How many students take the PSAT in 10th grade?
All of them.
All of them, October,
Yes.
right now. And
So
then,
we offer the PSAT in fall and spring of freshman year, fall and spring of 10th grade, spring of junior year, and then the juniors take the Connecticut SAT in the spring of junior year. So they have 5 PSAT practices before they take the SAT.
And do you know how, on average, how many take the SAT, let's say twice or even more than twice?
I don't know that number offhand, but I can get that to you.
This list doesn't delineate those who are accepted in the early decision or early action round versus the regular decision. Is there a encouragement to apply early?
Yes, we have many students applying early action. Fewer applying early decision just because that is a binding commitment. But many of our students are applying for early action deadlines this fall.
I would just wonder, maybe for the future, you could indicate how many got in early, you know, who are going to these enrolled schools. Also for the essay writing component, for the personal statement and then for the supplemental essays, is that something that, let's say, the English department helps students with? Or do you lead workshops and help them revise and edit their essays?
So we do an essay writing workshop in spring of junior year with every single junior English class. And then our 12th grade English teachers do a tremendous job supporting students in finalizing, drafting those essays in the fall. And we often have students who will come to us and ask for feedback on their essays as well.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I would love to explore the possibility of maybe seeing, as I look to our financial person, the possibility of seeing if we could create some kind of funding maybe for students that would want to apply to a stretch school, and maybe see if we could do some kind of exciting funding for a application fee. I don't know if we can. I'm just throwing this out there because I don't know if this is a possibility. So you could say no, and we could do it next year. But what and possibility of doing some kind of fun sort of thing where we could say if there's a stretch school that you would like to apply to, that maybe we could pay for that application fee for them, so that it would maybe encourage for a little excitement for our seniors to maybe consider that for next year. So I think, I don't know if we could do it this year because I know it's a very last minute thing, but I think it could possibly create some excitement for our students that are applying, and maybe create some excitement within your department to be able to be creative about ways to do that. So that's something to think about. I'm sorry that I put you on the hot seat, but it's
No, not at all. I think it
consideration.
sounds great, and we can talk about what that looks like and what kind of funding is necessary.
Yeah. Okay. So
And
something,
we do have ways that we support students with financial need. Often if we do outreach to an admissions office.
Yeah.
Explaining a student's circumstance, they'll give us a waiver code. Also students just might by default, right, by their income levels might be eligible for waivers through the common application and for sitting for additional SAT testing sessions. So there are ways, if students demonstrate financial need, that we look for resources to support them.
well, there's another way that we can be creative for every student who's applying to a school, that maybe we can also encourage them to apply to a school that may be outside of their comfort zone too, that we can maybe do that too. Yeah.
Great. So I'm going to move on to presenting the class of 2025 profile. The profile serves as a way to convey a picture of our school community, student accomplishments, and the academic experience here at Chippewa. It gives context to where our students come from when they're applying to post-secondary institutions. So we're going to be looking at this 2-page document in the back of your packet. At the top of the document, you will see a description of the Chippewa school community and student body. Each year, we update the details of our enrollment, which includes a breakdown of our high school population and Agri-Science Academy students. Below the community description, the Chippewa Valley core values are noted. There are also details about the facilities on campus and more detailed information about the Agri-Science Academy. At the bottom center of the page, we provide details of academic commitment recognitions. Students have the ability to earn points in each course demonstrating their commitment to learning, and these points are noted on their official transcripts. On the bottom right of this document, our grade scale and GPA weighting process by course type is outlined. Flipping to the back side of the profile, there is more information on academic expectations at Chippewa, as well as descriptions of our community service, senior project requirements, and supervised agricultural experience required for all students in the AgriScience Academy program. Below that section in the center of the page, there is a box with a breakdown of the percentage of our students continuing their education. Out of 80 students, 87% were accepted into post-secondary programs. This includes vocational training or certification programs, two-year colleges and four-year colleges. 74% of these students were accepted to four-year college programs. We also have noted in this section the total number of community service hours performed by the class of 2025, which was also highlighted in the class of 2025 report. And below that, we have the average SAT scores earned by the class of 2025 on the Digital Connecticut SAT in the spring of 2024. Along the right side of the page, you will see an updated list of our accelerated coursework, all of our advanced placement, dual enrollment college courses, and honors courses for core academic areas are listed. There are also links provided at the bottom right corner of this document to view course syllabi, as well as a comprehensive program of studies outlining all Chippewa High School courses and descriptions. Below the accelerated coursework, we have included information on our seal of biliteracy. Students earn the seal of biliteracy on their diploma by taking advanced language studies and sitting for a proficiency exam. 12 students in the class of 2025 demonstrated their proficiency in 2 or more languages, earning this biliteracy seal. And the last section of the profile at the bottom of page 2 highlights some of the activities and accomplishments that occurred last school year here at Chippewa, including the Harvard Model United Nations Conference, our athletic achievements, and awards earned by our AgriScience Academy, both at the state and national levels. Does anybody have any questions about the school profile?
This isn't necessarily specific to the class of 2025, but it just got me thinking since you mentioned it before. Our graduating students are taking the PSAT like on average 5 times or so before they take the SATs.
Yes.
Are you seeing strong correlations between those pre-scores and their SAT scores? Are you seeing any trends on how their performance is impacting their overall score? Our SAT scores, I think year after year have been pretty consistent. And I know they generally fall pretty much right in like the national average. So I think we're, as far as, you know, performing against the nation, we're kind of right there in the middle. But just wondering if you're seeing anything else at those pre-levels as we get closer to taking the SATs, if there are things that you're seeing that are impacting or could be done differently, or you know, what your thoughts are on that.
We do generally see improvement the more practice the student has. I think Carrie Snowden's actually going to be going to do a deeper dive into those scores.
Oh, great.
Come on. I just want to circle back to your weekly check-in meetings that you have with the students. You have a weekly meeting with each student? Is it a required meeting?
No, not a required meeting. It just depends on the student's need. So we have an initial meeting and then we invite students to return. For some students, if they have a lot of legwork to do and they're especially overwhelmed, we will consistently schedule a follow-up.
Okay, because I thought before you said you have weekly follow-up meetings.
A lot of the students do have weekly meetings, not every single student. Not every single student needs a weekly meeting.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I know that, and a lot of them are changing as of next year, but since COVID through 2026, a lot of the schools are either not requiring SATs, SAT optional, not taking them at all, and same with ACTs. Do we, so it's kind of a two-part question. Do we require our students to all take the SAT?
Yes.
Okay.
Connecticut requirement.
So I'm sorry, is it a school requirement or a state requirement?
It's a state requirement.
Okay. So there's probably not much we can do about that, but do you think that we are getting hurt in that if you have a kid who says, I'm going straight to employment, or I'm going to a trade school, or I'm applying to 6 colleges and every single one of them is SAT optional, and I have no intention of submitting my SAT score because I do not test well. Are we hurting ourselves? Hurting our stats for Chapag? And is there some sort of way around that? Can you get a waiver? Because I would assume those kids aren't studying because those kids are going, I'm taking this because they're making me.
The good thing is we do embed practice into our program. We reflect on which areas students are performing or not as performing as strongly. And our department heads really look at that data to make sure that that is being covered in classroom content. And we encourage the students, regardless of what they think they might be doing in the future, to do their very best so that they have the most options. Because if they do come across at a later date an institution that does require those scores, they're going to wish that they had done their very best, right? So we want them to make the most of that opportunity. Certainly students who feel like college isn't for them and, know that they're going to be entering the workforce upon graduation might not score as high as a student who has that motivation. But we try to relay the importance of that because they do all have to take it.
Wondering, I'm just wondering, do we encourage college recruitment people to come into Chapag?
Yes, we do. So we have over 50 representatives that have attended or are scheduled throughout the fall to come in from
Great.
schools all over the country. We also encourage students, if there is a school they're very interested in, that is not on our list of coming to Chapag for a visit, we can do outreach. So most recently, we have a student interested in engineering and he's looking at a school in Colorado. And our college and career coordinator reached out to them and they're sending a rep to us.
That's great. Thanks.
Just going back to Angela's point, is there a way to distinguish amongst the students who have submitted SAT scores in applications? That may help kind of.
So when we sit down with a student who's considering whether or not to submit their scores, if they have reached schools on their list, if that score does not match, right, that middle 50% average for that school, they're better off applying with just their transcript. But there might be other schools on their list where their score does meet that middle 50% range and it does benefit them to submit. So it varies by student.
So even like within a
it's
student.
not across the board, it's going to depend on each school's criteria.
Right. So that's not going to give an accurate reflection of which students were, either challenging themselves or not, because even per student, they may or may
It
not be
varies.
submitting to various schools.
Do you encourage any students to take the ACT instead of the
We
SAT?
do,
And
yes.
Are those numbers also compiled like the SAT numbers are?
They're not, just because we don't have a large amount of students who take them. So we don't generally publish those results either because it's such a small number of students who try both.
Who try both or try one or the other?
Well, they have to take the SAT, so the ACT would be in addition to.
They have to take the SAT because it's a state mandate. Okay. All right.
Sophia, when you talked about Reach School, so if you have a student and they say, I'm applying to these 6 schools, and does the guidance counselor, knowing, this is their SAT score, here's their grade point average, they tell me they want to go into, be a veterinarian, do they suggest to them, well, you know what, I'd like to see you shoot a little bit higher. Why don't you try Tufts? Or why don't you try, University of Nebraska? Or do they just simply say, these are great. I think you'll get into all of them. You might want to hit a reach school, and then the kid doesn't know what reach school are you suggesting I strive for?
We encourage them to challenge themselves. We can do searches specifically on reach schools, and we go through the college search engine in Naviance. Big Future also has a great feature in College Board. Those are two of the platforms we probably use most frequently. And we can find, based on not only their academic program, but the size of the school, the location. Do they want to be in a suburb? Do they want to be in the inner city? So like we put all of that criteria in, and then we help them search so they can expand their list.
Okay, so is that part of the initial meeting that where you sit down and you say, okay, because we're a very small school, do you want big school, small school? Do you want to be in the South? Do you want to go 10 hours away from home? Do you take all of that into consideration and then
So that starts
junior year?
really
Okay,
hashing out the criteria. And then going into senior year, for some students, it's redoing that piece, but then also getting into the actual application process and deadlines and those pieces of the application that they need to work on.
okay, thanks.
All right, another question. For how many students do you support, additional, getting accommodations for extra time? Of the 80 graduates, are any of them ever entitled to extra time or accommodations on the SAT?
Yes,
Is that a large number or a small number?
we have about 30% of our student body on some sort of academic plan. I can't tell you offhand how many get testing accommodations, but it is a significant number.
Hold on. Do you encourage students to take the SATs more than one time?
Yes. So if they are looking at schools that require a certain score and they're a more competitive school, it is going to give them an edge if they have a strong transcript in addition to a score that is within the middle 50% range. They should absolutely take it again.
Okay, so if you have 100 students and 60% of them got below a 1200, would you call those students in and say, I would highly recommend that you take the SATs again? Or do you say to the entire class, we recommend that you take it a second time?
Really, those conversations happen in the individual meetings because we don't want to put pressure on the group in its entirety if there are students within that group where the testing situation can be very anxiety provoking and it might not be the best use of that student's time. So when we talk to students about having to take the test again, it's more on an individual basis.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I have it somewhere. Where is it?
Here.
Carrie, Miss Snowden. I think you can use one of these microphones and just stay where you are.
Here? Okay. Okay,
Ben?
right, right. All right, well, good evening. And thank you so much for inviting me to share the results of the state's required testing for our district. I'm going to share the results from last school year, 2024, 2025. I have some slides up on the screen that'll sort of display what I'm talking about. Tonight, we're going to share results, comparisons with other districts, and some of our plans for improving. So on this slide right here, we see just sort of an overview of the different types of assessments that we give, not just the state mandated assessments that are given once a year. You see those at the bottom of the screen. But of course, we use daily classroom-based assessments. We regularly use curriculum-based assessments, you know, end of unit or chapter tests, final projects. We also have some district required assessments that we give 2 or 3 times a year. You might have heard students talking about taking a STAR test or taking the DIBELS. The IRLA is the independent reading assessment that is given in elementary school, part of our new reading program. Horizon is that PSAT like assessment that students start taking in 9th grade. And then of course the PSAT. Want to just point out that very last assessment you see down there in the bottom on the right. This is the DIBELS K-3. New this year as part of the Right to Read legislation and the Connecticut State Department of Ed's focus on the science of reading. Districts are required starting this year to administer and report results from a short list of K-3 reading assessments. In Region 12, we've chosen to continue with a screening test that we have been administering for several years, the DIBELS. DIBELS stands for Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. As I receive more information from the Department of Ed about reporting the results, I will share with the board and eventually share our district results from these assessments too. So we've been using the DIBELS, but now the state is requiring us to do some sort of screener. We are lucky that we were already using one that was a state required test. We're going to keep going with it. Okay, Ben, ready. So the first test we're going to look at is the SAT, as we were just discussing. This is a language arts and math test that's required to be administered to all juniors each year in the spring. In addition to SAT day, which is when the test is administered during the school day to all 11th graders, students are also able to take additional SAT tests on other dates as it's offered. The State Department of Ed collects student performance data for SAT tests that are taken at school. So the data we're going to look at only represents the tests that were taken at school and administered by us as a school. So first we're taking a look at language arts data on the screen right here. This just represents different cohorts of students over the years. So the juniors in 21-22, the juniors in 22-23, the juniors in 23-24, and then the juniors in 24-25. The numbers represent the percentage of students in each year who achieved the benchmark score of 480 or higher in language arts. Because our small class size, this is a point that Sophia made too, which I want to reiterate. Each student on this graph represents between 1 and 1.5 percentage points. I point this out to remind you that only a few students performing at above or below the benchmark can make a big difference when you're looking at percentages. All right, on the next slide, yeah. Oh, go right ahead.
What determines the benchmark score of 480? Is that a state or is that school? Is that national? That's it. So these are going to be based on Connecticut benchmark scores. Thank you.
So the next slide, Ben, shows growth for one cohort over time. Now, I just want to say this is a rough cohort, meaning these are the current 12th graders, right? Our current seniors. This tracks their percentage proficient on a variety of tests in language arts. So in the fall of their sophomore year, their average score was 475 on Horizon. In the spring of their sophomore year, their average score was 524 on the PSAT. In the fall of their junior year, their score was 530 on the PSAT. And then in the spring of their junior year, their average score was 561 on the SAT. It's important to know it's a rough cohort comparison, meaning there may be a few students who were in district for sophomore year, but then moved out for their junior year and vice versa. However, we don't have a large transient population. So generally the kids who were with us in 9th grade are the same kids who are with us in 11th grade. So this sort of goes back to a question I think that you were asking, Sophia, about tracking growth over time. And we can see that as we are using some of these pre-SAT tests, we are able to see growth over time because our teachers are doing a great job of really looking at that data and finding out you know, where are the weaknesses? What do we need to reinforce? And that happens in both the humanities department and in the math department. Next slide we're going to look at is math. And similar to the other bar graph, these are different cohorts over time. These are our juniors each year, 21, 22, 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25. And this is the percent of students who met the benchmark score in math. The benchmark is 530, tougher. And again, just a reminder, each student on each bar represents anywhere from 1 to 1.5 percentage points, depending on the number of students who were in 11th grade during that year. And again, on the next slide, same current seniors, and this was their growth over time from sophomore year to junior year on the Horizon and PSAT tests, sort of leading up to that last score on the right, which is the SAT. So again, you can see we are helping them grow, you know, as we're administering these tests and using the results to guide instruction. I think, let's see. Okay, next slide is some the next couple slides are SAT comparisons. So these bars, there's 2 of them, but once I explain what you're looking at, you'll see. These bars show, blue bars represent language arts, percent proficient. Red bars represent math, percent proficient. The top 2 bars are Region 12, language arts and math. The second 2 bars right underneath are the state of Connecticut, overall averages. And then this graph represents our surrounding districts. So basically districts that are, that generally touch our borders for the most part. A lot of them are very similar regional school districts. Some of them have agri-science programs too. So they offer an interesting comparison. And as you can see, Region 12 has some of the highest percentage rates of the students meeting the benchmark in both language arts and math in our geographic area. Just a little note, you'll see a missing bar for Region 1. There's no publicly reported percent for Region 1 math because that number was deemed so small in their data that it could be personally identifiable information. So when you go onto these public websites and you look some of this up, you'll see on the graphs and charts some asterisks where they don't share the data. And that's true in Region 12. If you go look up Region 12 data on the public website, you will see some asterisks in some places. And that's because our cohorts are so small that the state says, if we report this number, there's a chance people could guess who those kids are. And we don't want to do that. So just so you know, there's some missing data there. Ben, you can go to the next one. The next one is our sending districts. So this is the same graph, SAT, percent of students meeting benchmark, compared to the districts who send students to our agri-science program. And some of them are, you know, they border our district too, but some of them are far away. Some of these districts are much larger than our district, but it's just good to sort of see where we fit among them. You'll see that we are, you know, we often on this graph have more students scoring at the benchmark than most of the other districts on the graph too. Yeah.
Is it a coincidence that the numbers for the surrounding districts and the sending districts are the same?
What do you mean?
86.4% language, 53.4% math.
That's because that top 2 bars are Region 12. So that's going to be the same on both graphs, Region 12, Region 12.
But aren't the numbers based on sending districts, different kids?
For each of so the top 2 bars represent our students, Region 12 students, the kids who are in Region 12. The bars, for example, like if you go 3 down and you see Bethel Public Schools, no Region 12 kids are represented in Bethel Public Schools. That's how the Bethel kids scored.
I got it backwards.
Like their high school.
I got you now.
Okay. And again, percentage is very different. You know, in Danbury High School, how many 11th graders do they have? Hundreds. So each one of their students is a tiny fraction of a percent, while we have students who are equal 1%. So, you know, you can't be thinking about numbers. This is strictly a percentage comparison. All right. And then the next screen is just some thoughts and ideas we have about plans for improving our SAT. So last year I presented some ideas that we had for improving our SAT scores. We are carrying on with many of those ideas. These represent a couple of new ideas too, things that we're planning to implement this year at Chapag to help our current 11th graders, you know, score their best possible scores on the spring SAT. We're going to move on to Smarter Balance. So I don't know if anybody wants to ask any questions about SAT before we move on to that next test.
It's not really a question, but I really like the idea of the Math Honors Society students working with the other students. I think that goes a long way.
I
More
will
than
say that
maybe
the-
more than anything else.
Marianne Amar, the leader of the math department, has really worked hard in many different places to get those Math Honor Society kids helping out, even, you know, in middle school classes and in different, you know, freshman, sophomore, junior classes. I agree. She puts those kids to work for sure. They earn their Math Honor Society certificates and it does go a long way.
The Khan Academy also can be very helpful. My husband uses that to this day with, and he's, you know, he's been an engineer for decades.
Yep. We're hoping to use that a little bit and see what it can offer us. All set? Yeah. Oh, you need this.
Really kind of maybe more of a comment into something that we've kind of been talking about over the last couple of years. I don't know, I appreciate that there may be some more slightly unconventional ways of studying for test prep rather than more tests to study for the test. So I don't know if there are better ways out there. I don't know if there are ways that we're thinking about that can improve, again, down the line, either like mastery level understanding of concepts and whatnot that don't involve extra tests. So I don't know, just something to think about and throw out there. I see a couple other ideas and I appreciate that. Trying to get away from just over scheduling, and again, for plenty of our students that do have like testing anxiety and whatnot, like a way to alleviate that or creatively work around that to help them out. So anyway, random comment.
There's always a benefit to doing some sort of true test prep because sometimes the language of some of these tests is so different from the way we work and speak about these topics otherwise. So there's definitely some advantage for students having experience with test-like questions, but we all agree that it's more about the learning and improving student achievement overall, whatever the test score is. And so that means we've got to embed it in our day-to-day curriculum. It means we have to think about how to do it in a way that promotes sort of an excitement and as an opportunity for kids to show what they know and not just, you know, sort of drill to raise a score. Yeah.
And just to ask one more question, it reminded me of what Sophia was talking about with application processes, that now there are more and more schools that are dropping the SAT requirement as a whole anyway. I don't know, it feels like there's just a tug and a pull between what we're prepping students for and requiring them to do, and then what kind of higher education is asking of them. And I know there's the merging of that is kind of creating like a hazy kind of border, but I don't know how we're approaching that as well, or if we're kind of waiting for that to come top down. You know, what do we do to kind of anticipate the changing needs of students who are applying in the schools and what they're asking them to provide?
I mean, Sophia could speak a little more to this, but I know there was a bit of a dip in SAT requirements after COVID. I think we're seeing a little bit of an uptick on that now. Schools for a while let go of SAT requirements, but I think in the last couple of years, we've seen a few more schools begin to require it again. However, that being said, the state is requiring us to give this test to all juniors. It's the state mandated test. We don't have a choice. So we're going to obviously approach it, as we always do, in the most positive way, that this is just, a way for us to check ourselves, how we're doing. Are there things we need to look at for the curriculum? Are there pathways that we're not encouraging students to take that maybe would help? We're looking at new course offerings. We're looking at so many different things, because again, it comes back to the learning and the achievement of students, even beyond the test score, I think, in our minds.
Is SAT aligned with the CCSS, or do those two not talk to each other?
Well, I think there's a question about that. I think some people question that. College Board would say, yes, it is. However, remember that the original purpose of the SAT is to predict success in college classes, and college classes are above and beyond the Common Core. So I can only report what College Board says. And by the way, I don't think we think that the items that they're asking, the material that is being asked of students on the SAT, is way outside the Common Core curriculum that we teach. We see the alignment. Have we done an item by item analysis? No. Yeah.
Going back to the Khan Academy, I like that because the kids can work by themselves with the Khan Academy, and they can keep going over the same thing over and over and over again until they do understand it. And that, I think, they never have to be embarrassed about asking a question or working on it over and over again. And I think that could be very important for some of our students.
That aspect of digital tech tools, for students is so helpful, that they can get instant feedback. Did they get it right or not? And then so many of them now are able to provide really, like, you didn't get it, try this lesson. You didn't get it, try this lesson. So it can be very, very helpful for students who need to hear things multiple times, which many do. Moving on to Smarter Balance. The Smarter Balance assessment is given to all students, again, state mandated tests in grades 3 through 8, both in language arts and math. And we're going to look at some very similar graphs, so I probably won't need to explain them as much. This is percent proficient for all our 3rd through 5th graders together. So if you take the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders from all 3 schools, put them all together in one group, this is year over year, different cohorts, groups of kids, and the percent of those students who were proficient in language arts. This is language arts specifically. And again, on this graph, each student represents about 0.8 percentage points, just to get a sense of how much difference a few kids can make. And then on the next screen, we're to look at 6 through 8. Again, these are all the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders put together. Year over year in language arts, this is the percent of those students who were proficient. And on this graph, each student represents about 0.6 percentage points.
Just a question, Carrie.
Yeah.
This last year, where in both cases there was a decline
Yeah.
at the end, is this attributable at all to the transition to ARC Core as an instructional?
I would say perhaps in 3 through 5. Because that's where ARC Core was introduced. And I will say the year before, so last year we had a brand new program. It's an excellent program. It's a knowledge-based program, great vocabulary development. I think it's going to strengthen these scores over time. However, in first year is a first year. And the year before they implemented ARC Core, when they were piloting a couple of different programs, this was before I arrived in the district, I do think there was some disruption to some of the units of study, because they were testing out different programs and then going back to their original program. So I don't know that you could, draw a direct cause and effect to that, but there are a lot of teachers who are thinking that pilot year and then the first year of the new program, there may be some gaps. All right, moving on. The next couple graphs are Now cohort graph. So Ben, you can go to the next one. So this is the growth for our current sixth grade students during their time in elementary school for language arts. Most of them were in our district for these 3 years, but there may be a few students who moved in or out. So you can see where they started in third grade on the Smarter Balance score, percent proficient, where they were in fourth grade, and how they finished in fifth grade. On this graph, each student represents about 2.2 percentage points. So one student makes a big difference when you're talking about percentages. You know, 2 students would be 5%. 4 students is 10%. You just got to keep that in mind. On these growth charts, which there's going to be a few more, it's important to note that this data represents our current students, whether they were in our district in years past or not. Because of the data collection I can access, that's sort of not public data, but password protected data. I can see how kids scored even if they weren't in our district in third and fourth grade. And I like to use that data in the growth charts because then it sort of traces a child over time. Not so much when we're doing the different cohorts, but when we're doing the growth charts, that's the data I choose. And then on the next slide, you're going to see growth for our ninth grade students when they were in fifth grade, and then sixth, seventh, and eighth. Each student here represents about 1.2 percentage points. So that's 4 Smarter Balance tests over the years. Rough cohort, mostly the same kids, could be some kids who moved in and out of the district. And then we're going to take a look at math. So this is historical data for groups of third, fourth, and fifth graders over the last 4 years, the percent proficient. 4 different groups of students. And then the next slide shows you the last 4 years of performance on math for 6 through 8. So you can see, again, different cohorts over the years, all the 6th through 8th graders together. And then a couple of growth charts coming up in math. Similar to language arts data, here are the results for our current 6th graders in math. We can see over time, there's been a change in the percentage of students who've met the benchmark. And as a reminder, each student represents about 2.2 percentage points. So that's current 6th graders. And then the next graph is current 9th graders. Sure. Yes, 3 or 4, level 3 or level 4. Yep. Yes, that is correct. I should be clear about that. Yep. So this again is growth data over time for our current 9th graders in math, the percent of students who were proficient over the last 4 Smarter Balance tests. And then on the next slide, we're going to see the comparison graphs. These are the surrounding districts, so the districts that sort of meet, touch our borders. All students in grades 3 through 8. Just let me say that again. This is all 3 through 8, not just 3 through 5 or 6 through 8. This is all students 3 through 8. These are the percent proficient students. Top 2 bars is Region 12. Second 2 bars is state of Connecticut overall. So you can see we are well above the state percentages. And then I picked Kent out of Region 1 because Housatonic doesn't give Smarter Balance, right? They're a high school. Kent is the Region 1 town that borders us. So I picked Kent as the town to compare for Region 1, Region 20, 7, 14, and 15. And as you can see, we are, there are a few districts who score, higher percent proficient in a few places, but generally we are, performing as well or better than most of the districts on this graph. And then the next one is the sending districts one more time. So the same, again, Region 12 on top, state of Connecticut, the next one down, and then all of the districts who send us students, you can see what their percent proficient is on the Smarter Balance test for language arts and math too. And then finally, a couple of slides about plans for improvement. So we are, at the beginning of the year, we're taking a look at these results. We start seeing these Smarter Balance results in June. but we don't have very much time to analyze them and dig deep into them until right about now. I'm about to go do data review meetings with all of the elementary teachers next week and the week after. So we will dig a little deeper into all of these scores and see, you know, we end up going student by student, looking for growth, looking for lack of growth, thinking about where that student is and what, remember that first slide where I showed you all the other assessments we give? Well, we use a lot of that information to help us make decisions too. But these are some things we're planning to do for language arts. Ben, the next slide is ideas for improvement in math, in addition to the things we were doing last year. Couple of different ideas. And then the last slide in this section is just sort of general plans for improvement of smarter balance scores. We're using Linkit to review our data. I just talked about the data review meetings. We're using interim assessments. On Smarter Balance, we have access to interim assessments that teachers can give, and they can analyze those for results. And that's it for, oh, one more for Smarter Balance. Sorry, Ben. One thing we started, I think it was last year, Marianne, the prep rally at Chippewa, 2 years. They do a great fun pep rally as kids launch into Smarter Balance. And that's another place where the Math Honor Society kids step up to the plate and plan a fun event to try to get kids excited about that. All right, we're going to move on to the last assessment, but any questions about Smarter Balance before we do that? Yeah.
Plans for improvement.
Yeah.
Are there, I mean, it seems like to me, not having too much familiarity with this, it seems like to me what we're doing is we're using standardized testing to help predict and have kids get better standardized testing results. Do we, when analyzing data, also make room for, you know, teachers' anecdotal or empirical data as well?
Yes. When we do those data reviews, we ask teachers to bring classroom-based assessments that they're doing, formal and informal. So that could be an end of unit test, but it could also be an exit slip that they gave, you know, for certain lessons. We're also looking at the district assessment. So like the STAR test is a standardized test, but that gives us, that's fairly good predictive information around how kids are going to perform on the state test at the end of the year. And we give those in the fall and the winter to give us a chance to do some intervention. You know, when I say intervention, I don't necessarily mean kids are in tier 1 and tier 2 and 3 intervention. I mean, could be just classroom intervention, right? Like something teacher notices the whole group needs. So yes, all data is considered when we're talking about helping students. Yes, for sure, including observations. All right, last assessment is next generation science standards. So this is a state required assessment in science. It's given to 5th, 8th, and 11th graders. This is the data for the 5th graders over the last 4 years. We don't have any growth data because they skip years, right? So this is more about over the last 4 years, these are how the 5th graders have performed, you know, pretty significant consistency here. You can see. The next slide shows our 8th grade performance. How percent proficient here. Number of the percent of students who were proficient in NGSS in 8th grade. And then the last slide shows 11th grade. And then slide after that is just thinking about improving NGSS. We have interim assessments there that we can take a look at and align with our curriculum. And the science department is always developing project-based learning units that they think will increase student engagement, which increases learning, of course. And that is the last slide. I know that's so much information. It's a lot to take in, but I appreciate your
Thank you,
sticking with me.
Carrie. No, it's great. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Moving on to board reports and recognition. Board chair report, I'm gonna make it short and sweet. It was brought up to me by a few people about the niche new report that came out for Connecticut and Region 12. They got I think we got an A. We didn't get an A+, we got an A, which is pretty darn good, I think. Which was the biggest achievement was that our teachers got an A+, which I'm really proud about, which just is amazing. And our administration got an A-. So thank you to our faculty. So that was really huge. And I think that it speaks volumes to how lucky our students are for our teachers and our administrators. Thank you. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Short and sweet.
Thank you, Jen. Just a couple of points in my report. Mr. Cobb would have loved hearing this, but he'll find out about it on our websites. We're doing more and more with the planetarium, and as you know, you remember being in there the other week, and it's an important tool for teaching and learning for sure, but it's also part of our plan for family and community engagement. It's a great magnet to bring people into the school. And Frizo Hermans, who's running it, is going to have some special sessions coming up on Thursday, October 16th. This is publicized all over all of our websites. People can find the information and click to join. A special program, Journey to the Center of the Milky Way, with live interactive exploration of the night sky after that. Everyone's welcome, with a special, especially targeting elementary students and their families and senior citizens to come in and have that planetarium experience. And that's going to be published. Yes.
While you're talking about Frizo, which I wrote myself a Post-it because he didn't share this at the presentation. And I don't think he told me he didn't share this with you either. So when he gave his presentation, I saw him the next day. He was in, let me get this right. He said in Birmingham, England a few weeks ago, and he gave a presentation to 70 people for a planetarium convention in Birmingham, England. So he gave it to 70 people, and he was a presenter for two presentations based on how to enhance a planetarium to schools, based on what he's doing here at Chapag, which I just thought was pretty phenomenal. And I told him, I said, why didn't you share that with the board? And he goes, I don't know. He says, I was already too chatty. And I thought, well, that's pretty impressive. So these 70 people that came to England to listen to him speak, so that he could share and inspire other people and how they could create their planetariums to do all these amazing things. So I'm sorry. So I just want to share.
That's worth mentioning. He's very humble. You can click on our website and find all the details, and it's October, but it's also October 16th, 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. are the two shows. And then afterwards, some kind of incursion to look at the real night sky. And it's $5 to come, but you can just find out how to do that on the website. And Frizo's an amazing asset, and he's a Renaissance person, as we said. So thanks for highlighting that. Sometimes people have been asking me about whether, with all the, with the federal government shutdown happening and looming large in the news, whether that has any impact on funding to local public schools. And we don't get a large amount of revenue from that source, but it does not. So nobody needs to worry about that. That money is still coming in. I wanted to say that I had a really nice experience. Not that they aren't all, but this one I thought was extra nice. When I attended, I go to the Agri-Science committee meetings, and one of them is the Friends and Alumni of Agri-Science. And Mary, you were there. Correct me if I got this wrong, but I picked up just a great vibe at this particular meeting about increased levels of student engagement and involvement and excitement about being part of the program, as evidenced by the number of kids who are joining clubs, seeking SAE opportunities, asking for more educational experiences. They say it's a level of a vibe of excitement they haven't seen yet. So I think it could be that the program continues, taking quantum leaps. And I thought it was a really good message there. And then you all have on front of you, again, a little reminder about the Ag Expo, which is going to be big, Saturday, October 18th. And then the next day on the 19th, Little Britches, our partner, will have their horse show from 10 to 3. And just a few personnel matters to report on appointments. Bailey Heron is the JV field hockey coach at Chippewa. Suzanne Jacob Machino is a building substitute at Booth Free School. It's a 1-year position. William Levinas is the JV girls soccer coach at Chippewa. Bailey Pody is a building substitute at Chippewa. That's a 1-year position. Melissa Ralston Jones is a building substitute at Washington Primary School, a 1-year position. And Julia Sinatra is a literacy tutor at Booth Free School. Thank you.
It's nice to see so many alum with Julia Sinatra, Bailey Heron, another Bailey in there. So it's great. Treasurer's report, Alex.
I'm going to include my F&O meeting report here because we have not had a meeting. The only 3 things worth mentioning are: one, the heating system at Washington Primary is taken a turn for the worse. Let's put it this way, in the sense that it may cost us more money than we thought. What we're going to do is we're going to, just so everybody understands, we have a backup unit. There's 2 units. So if one fails, the other one can proceed. We're going to test the units to see if they've outlived their life, if one of them is in better shape than the other, whether we really have to replace both, or whether we can replace one and use the better of the 2 existing ones as the backup. What time frame. Anyway, I will report back with more data on this when we get it. We just opened up the bids, or Nicole opened up the bids just, I think, a week ago. As far as the good news is, the audit is underway, and according to Nicole, we're way ahead of schedule on that. So that will get off our plate hopefully sometime soon. And next month we will start the budgeting process. Always the gruesome budgeting process, and that's all I have to report.
Thanks, Alex. Committee report, agri-science, Mary?
We haven't had a meeting yet. Our next meeting was supposed to be scheduled for October 20th. And because I can't make it and I'm the chair, we're going to move that to November 3rd before our Board of Ed meeting.
Thank you. Curriculum, Justin?
We just had a meeting tonight and a couple of highlights. The board or the committee made a motion to approve Ban This Book by Alan Gratz and send that to the board for final approval. And we also made a motion to approve One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey for board approval as well. The other thing we talked about, Carrie and her team did a phenomenal job putting together kind of like a 1-page curriculum scope and sequence highlight for what the elementary school students are doing throughout the year. And we sort of spent the rest of the meeting sort of brainstorming or talking about ways that we could get parents, to become more familiar with that information. So we brainstormed some strategies.
Thank you. At Advance, Joe?
Nothing to report.
Finance and operations.
Nothing new to report. I'm going to propose that we get a new microphone system for the meetings. Get that on the budget.
Labor negotiations.
Nothing new to report. We haven't had a meeting yet.
Policy, Justin?
Our next meeting is October 20th at 6:30. And then we do have, further on in the agenda, I'll hold off on commenting now until then. but a first read of policy 5114, the discipline.
Thank you. Strategic long-range planning, we met earlier tonight, and Carrie Snowden, spoke about the, work of the Teaching and Learning Council, specifically, year 2 goals. And she spoke about the, I'm just gonna read a little bit about the strategic, priorities of the commitment 1. And she really just kind of talked about the subcommittee of the Powerful Learning, really allowing for the continuation of the work from year 1. And talked about commitment 2 and 3, the use of commitment 3, really the use of student performance data to make informed decisions and modifications. And really just to touch upon all of the work that the team has been doing. And just continue to talk more over the next few months about all the hard work. So it's been really exciting to hear about it. So thank you, Carrie, for all of the hard work you've been talking about tonight. Yes, Justin.
Do we need to make a motion to bring the 2 books, Ban This Book and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Do we need to make a motion tonight to have that for the next board meeting for the approval? Or would it be on the next meeting?
I think we can make a motion to amend the agenda if we wanted to, or can we?
I just think if the board is going to approve it, maybe we should give the board access to all the documents that we had.
Well, my sense would be too that we would put it on the next agenda because then we can have a conversation about it.
Yeah,
so that
right,
The
right.
board, if has any questions, then we can have a conversation about
So
it.
we don't need to make, I guess, so
No.
there's no motion, it'll just be on the next agenda?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think so, because then it allows anybody
right,
to have any questions about it. We
Okay.
can discuss it.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, is that good? Okay. Yeah. Old business, none, new business. To consider for approval, first reading of the policy 5114, student discipline.
Okay, thanks. So you all have a red line version in front of you, and this is the basic policy that lays out what kinds of things could subject a student to discipline and a lot of definitions that support those understandings. And there are no new sea changes or pivots or philosophies represented in this. It's just a matter that we adopt Shipman and Goodwin's model policies. They align to statutes and laws, and from time to time, if laws change or if things change in the world, they update their policies. And this one's due for being updated for a couple of reasons. First of all, recently we added a new school climate and restorative practice policy. Those 2 policies, one on school climate and restorative practices. This has to be read in conjunction with those. That triggers some changes. And then in addition, just as the world moves on, and you'll see in a minute, I'm going to try to summarize the key changes, some of it related to technology, some of other events in the world, you find that you have to update the policy so that it stays current. Okay, so there's nothing really profoundly earth-shaking in this, but there are some ideas that would bring it into conformity and more in alignment with other policies, other law, and the world that we now live in, okay? Now, it's a long document. I want to take some of the burden off, so I just took some notes, and I'm going to tell you the key differences between the 2 versions, okay? The first is in just definitions. This policy deals with the concept of artificial intelligence, which is a relatively new thing. It hadn't been in prior versions. First, it defines it as basically technology capable of learning patterns and generating content. That's on page 2. And then later on throughout the policy, it references artificial intelligence to say that kids have to use it properly. They can't use it when the teachers say they can't use it to plagiarize, and they can't use it to commit any disruptive offenses, which I don't think, thankfully, is a problem here. But in the world, with AI now, you can generate these bots that can randomly call swatting calls into schools and, trigger the police or the fire department to show up. That's no bueno, right? So things like that are dealt with in this policy. Artificial intelligence is defined and then limits are set on it. And those limits don't impair our ability to use it to teach and to think as a tool to help students develop better critical thinking and certainly move into new technology. but it sets appropriate limits on the improper use of artificial intelligence, okay? Another change on page 2 is there's a definition of what is a protected class and the notion of protected class harassment. So a protected class is one marked by historically oppressed treatment. So race, gender, creed, other similar things like that. And if somebody experiences mistreatment or harassment based upon membership in that class, it constitutes a separate offense potentially under this policy, recognizing the fact that it's probably a little bit more malignant to school climate and student safety than other types of generic harassment. Now, it used to be, another thing that I'm going to tell you about in a minute is that this policy updates the definition of bullying to bring it into line with the current statute. The old definition of bullying had a provision that anytime you picked on somebody based upon those demographic traits, it was per se bullying. That definition is now gone. So I think this policy, this is here, this protected class harassment thing is here to protect the idea that it's per se a problem if you pick on somebody because of membership in that class, okay? This policy also includes a more expansive definition of school grounds beyond just the brick and mortar of the campus, but including environments that could be virtual. Now, we don't have distance learning anymore, but we do have students who participate in the virtual high school or other types of online learning experiences. And this policy makes it clear that anything that would be misbehavior or disruptive in the physical world is also disruptive in the virtual world. And then the last definitional change is, since the policy was first written, cannabis has become certainly still not welcome on school campuses, but not illegal for everyone in the population, not illegal for adults in the population. And so now, in this policy, although cannabis is certainly a violation to have on campus, it can't trigger a more serious violation than having other similar substances like beer or alcohol, meaning it's not an arrestable offense anymore. It's dealt with under the discipline code. Okay. Then the other changes, don't worry, we're almost, are in the section 3 that actually lists the things that could lead to discipline. So in the first paragraph of that section 3, I added one word. This is the only word that doesn't come from Shipman. It comes from me. And that paragraph says that, you can't assault or mistreat any person or faculty member or staff on campus. I added or animal. I just think because we're an agri-science center, we should have that there. Paragraph 6 adds that protected class harassment offense that I just talked about. Paragraph 7, and in many other places, when you see red line changes in the policy, references to gender are deleted. So if it used to say the student will do this to herself or himself, those kinds of things, that's gone now, and it's just gender neutral language. In paragraph 10, it says that you can't use AI, as I said before, to commit infractions. Paragraph 15 defines with greater specificity e-vape devices. So the things that the kids use to vape, which are more technically advanced now than ever, and provides that they're not allowed on campus. In 26, we see what it maps out actually bad use of AI, which is plagiarism, or to disrupt. In paragraph 32, there's a new bullying definition, which now, and there have been different iterations of bullying in different states. The latest definition here in Connecticut focuses on a perceived or a real power imbalance. That if one person is picking on another and one of them has more perceived or actual power in the culture of the school, then that automatically triggers bullying. And it can happen by cyberbullying too, if it's done on electronic media. And then there are some procedures that you'll see towards the end of the policy that are a little bit different, that administration has to provide timely and specific notice to parents of students who have certain types of infractions or discipline interactions. Those are I know that's a lot, but hopefully the flavor of it is the big changes are to add new definitions of technology and how it impacts us, new definition of bullying, the idea of protected class harassment, the idea of cleansing gender from the document. Those are the big thematic differences in the policy. So, you'll still look at it. You've got the red line version and the current and the revised version. And I'll take questions now. I think My hope is that you might be ready on a second read to consider it next time. You're welcome.
Can I have a motion to approve for first reading? First. Jane, second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Abstentions? Moves on for first reading. Thank you. Okay, great. Can I have a motion to move into executive session for the presentation and discussion of superintendent's goals? Second. All in favor? All right, thank you.